Welcome to the Boosting Achievement ESL podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Carol Salva. In this podcast, I am chronicling my journey of learning about the best ways to support multilingual learners and the teachers who teach them. As always, you can find today's show notes at the short link bit.ly/BA podcast, all in capital letters, and you are looking for episode 109. Before we get started, let me suggest that you check out Voice Ed Radio. It's at voiced.ca, and it's education radio 24 hours a day. I'm so honored this show streams over there in the stream and on demand. Okay, so let's get into today's show where my guest is Nancy Motley. And it's wonderful to have the amazing Nancy Motley on the show to talk about her new book, Small Moves, Big Gains. Nancy is someone that I have modeled my career, how I work with students. I've learned so much from her over the years. She's a colleague at Salva's Education with me, but she's also my mentor. And I'm just honored to have her come and talk about this. There has never been a better time for this resource. It could come out at any time and it would be a hit, but this is such an important time to offer educators manageable chunks, small moves that have tremendous payoff in any classroom. And I'm excited that she's going to share a few of those with us that we can use immediately just from listening to this show. So let's go listen to Nancy. She's going to tell us a little bit more about herself in the beginning, and then stick around because after the show, I'll talk about what I've learned from this conversation and also where we can connect. All right, let's go.
I'm super excited to be joining you. I love this podcast and I'm really very excited about what we're going to talk about. So thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's an extreme honor. So I'd love to start because thankfully this show broadcasts internationally, really. So if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, let's just start with that. Who is Nancy Motley? What are you doing right now?
Yeah, there's nothing mysterious. So I actually live in Cypress, Texas, which is just outside of Houston. And I started off as a third grade classroom teacher, and all of my experience as an educator kind of ended up spanning all the way up through 12th grade. I kind of wore a lot of hats, as many teachers do, in different roles. And then I worked my way through being, a curriculum writer and a program coordinator and a reading coach and lots of different things that really, I get bored easily. So I move around. I moved around a lot, and all of those experiences really helped me. And then in 2006, I had my first daughter and decided to stay at home for a few years, which was a great joy. But after year 3, I thought my brain was turning to mud. I couldn't watch Barney any longer, right? So I went back to work, and that's when I started working with Salva's Education as a consultant. And so I still do that work now. I'm in my 12th year with them, and really I have 3 roles now. The first one is to deliver really relevant and powerful professional development to teachers everywhere. And we're doing that face-to-face. We're doing that virtually. The second part of my job, which is really gratifying, is when I get to go onto campuses and do more job embedded work, supporting teachers in their environment in real time with real kids. And then the third part of my job is to write and develop new products, which nice segue into today, which is I have a new book coming out called Small Moves, Big Gains. And this will be my 3rd book. And I've never been more excited about a resource. And I thought that wasn't possible after Talk, Read, Talk, Write came out. But I think that the message in this book is what teachers need to hear right now. And I don't think the messaging will ever go away. So I don't know. Did I talk too much, too little? That's a little about me.
It's perfect. It was perfect because first of all, you can hear the excitement in your voice. You can feel your enthusiasm for this resource. And I feel so fortunate to have gotten an advanced copy. So by the time this podcast comes out, the book will be hitting the shelves. I'm excited about it. Small moves and big gains. the title, is explanatory, right? You're going to do some small things and you're going to get a big payoff for them. But I don't know that people are prepared for how it's going to touch you on a personal level from the beginning of the book. I was so happy to have an advanced copy. It started to change my life like right away, with not even my professional life. Can you speak to that a little bit, or even like what inspired you?
Sure. Yeah. So in doing this consulting work for over the last decade, right, I spend lots and lots and lots of hours talking with teachers. And we're always talking about how we can improve our craft, right? So you're like I am, like many teachers are. You go to a PD and it's amazing and you love it. And you are like leaving feeling so energized and empowered. And then you get back to campus the next day and you've got a stack of papers to grade, and you just found out you don't have your planning period because you have to go to a PLC with a lady you've never met before, and you have 4 parent phone calls, and life hits, right? And so even when you want to implement these like great ideas to become a better teacher, it's not lack of desire. It's just, how do I do it among everything else? And I found that in my coaching conversations with teachers, as I've evolved as a coach and a consultant, the feedback that I'm offering, positive, negative, neutral, I realize has to be the smallest nugget possible in order for implementation to occur, right? So I found that even though in my mind, I have a teacher who really wants to get student conversation going on in the classroom, I can't give that teacher a 7-step plan for how to do that. I have to say, here's the first thing, right? Practice that for a while. And the beauty of that is that it's actionable. So I'm circling the wagon. So here's the thing. So that's really where the seed was born, which was I found that all the things coming out of my mouth really were, in fact, what I would classify as a small move. So the first thing I do in the book is define what a small move is. And I've got 5 characteristics for it. So a small move to be in this book, to be part of what the message that I'm sharing is, it has to be applicable to all learners. You and I both know that most of our work is with emergent bilingual populations, but it's got to work for the kid that's bored, and it's got to work for the kid that comes from poverty, and it's got to work for the kid who loves your class and takes over, right? So all the kids. So it's got to work for all kids. It's also got to work in all contents, right? If I'm a high school drama teacher, if I'm a 2nd grade self-contained teacher, if I'm the media specialist at a middle school, it's got to work for everybody, right? And then the 3 that are most important to me is they have to be actionable, they have to be low to no prep, and they have to be short, like 2 minutes or less. So that's really kind of what we mean by small moves. And kind of to give you the big picture, which kind of is the connection that you said about there is some personal connection that every teacher is going to make with this book. You don't have to be a teacher to glean goods from the resource, but really, when we think about big gains, it boils down to, not to get too philosophical, but it boils down to your identity as a teacher, right? What kind of teacher do you want to be? And if you don't know the answer to that, if you sit on it for 60 seconds, you will. Like, how do you want your kids to see you? What do you want your kids to be able to do because of your influence as a teacher? So the subtitle of the book is, in my mind, a way to identify as a teacher that I don't know anybody who would disagree with me, which is I want to be the kind of teacher that helps kids to talk more, to think more, and to achieve more. That's the kind of teacher I want to be. And I've really not run into any teachers who don't want to be that kind of teacher.
We all want to be that. Yes.
Yeah. So while I have this big idea, I want to be the kind of teacher that gets kids talking, thinking, and achieving content knowledge in my class. That's what I want to do, right? I've got that as my big idea.
Yes.
The connection in your personal life is your big idea might be, I want to lose weight, right? So you see, these are both big rocks, this massive kind of teacher and maybe losing 20 pounds, right? Whatever that looks like. Now the key is I've got to break that down into the smallest moves possible. Things that are brief, actionable, no prep, right? All of those things. And once I have those moves, once I know what they are, the third and final step is, how do I automate them into habits?
Right.
How do I do that small thing so much that it literally becomes automatic and it doesn't take me thinking about doing it anymore. It's just what I do.
Right.
And so that's really kind of the what you're going to get from the book, which is thinking about what kind of teacher do I want to be? What are some very specific, teeny tiny, actionable, no prep steps I can take to become that kind of teacher? I think of those as like votes for myself. Every time I make one of these small moves, I'm choosing me and the kind of teacher I want to be. And then I'm just going to use what we know about habit formation, which I shared that research in the book. We know how to build habits. And we know that from the self-help world, right? And now all we're going to do is just bring it into teaching. And we're going to automate these votes for ourselves so that what happens is we in fact become the teacher who gets kids to think more, talk more, and achieve more.
We know so many things about what we do is a mindset, right? Can I get into the right mindset? It's a head game kind of thing. And in habits though, habits sound so much better. I think I told you I follow Dean Dwyer, and he is a habits guy and a mindset guy. And I've been following for years, and he has helped me change some major things. And he talks in the research about that too. Think of it in terms of building habits instead of willpower. We all are just creatures of habit. And so if you can change your habits, you could change your life.
Absolutely. That's it. Yes.
So taking it down to this small level. I also want to tell people listening that I had another fun insider opportunity where Nancy had a soft launch of her training that goes with this book. So at Sidelets Education, we have resources for educators, and they go with these workshops that we do. And so we got to come just last week. I'm still giddy about it because it was the most fun. We got to go and see the preliminary, like, here's how the training would go. And then Nancy asked us for feedback. I tried to sit out with people because a lot of Sidelets folks were there, but I wanted to sit with people I didn't know. And everybody I met and everybody around me, they were not the ESL folks. They were the curriculum folks. They were the math people or the language arts people from their district that came. And I was asking them, where are your ESL people? And they would, oh yeah, they're coming later when it comes out. Well, or whatever. I know that because Talk, Read, Talk, Write is also a resource that teachers use. Your previous book is a resource that teachers use that are content teachers, not necessarily English learner, but of course it works very much for English learners. But I thought that was great that they trust so much that it's going to be good content that they come, and they're not the ESL folks. I thought that was great.
It was really a very powerful day for me because, well, I mean, we all know about sub shortages. It's May, we're closing out the year. You know what I mean? That was kind of a big ask to say, hey, can you leave your classroom 2 weeks before school comes out and pay for a sub so you can come let me practice on you, right? And I didn't have a single person that I asked who said no. And I did appreciate that we did have a really good cross section of who was in the audience. I am still right now poring over the feedback so that I can make the training even more powerful. But really the biggest takeaway that I got from the feedback was everyone left feeling uplifted and like, I can do this. And I think that those two messages right now in education are so important. I mean, every teacher I know right now, I shouldn't say every, but most of the teachers I know, they feel overwhelmed, they feel overworked, they feel undervalued oftentimes, right? And so this idea that I can do a teeny tiny thing and I can be intentional about just doing that so much so that it becomes a habit. It feels like, man, I can do that.
I can do that.
I can get back to being the sort of teacher that I want to be, even though my real life is in this space, this environment that, teachers are an environment they don't have a lot of control over sometimes, right?
Right.
Like this COVID fatigue, right? What did you tell me that one of your colleagues said that they were just pandemic tired, right?
Yeah, she wrote me an email and said, please keep coming back to help us. It's somebody that I coach at a district. And she said, please keep coming back to help us. It's that we're pandemic tired, not unwilling.
Yes.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. And I feel like that talking about these, 23 small moves that teachers can make. And the feedback that they left with was, I can do this, even if I am, say, pandemic tired, right? To me, that's it. And I worry maybe that like an administrator, for example, might think that I'm oversimplifying what needs to be going on in a classroom, right? Like, I get it. We need to take baby steps, but we need huge change, right? We're in school improvement and we need a drastic shift, right? The thing is, it's my belief that there's no drastic shifts that happen outside of taking small and deliberate moves toward that goal, right? Like you don't make a giant change. You don't go from not being a runner to being able to run a marathon. It just doesn't work like that.
That is such a good example.
Yeah. I think that, and for the teacher, the one who is responsible for moving that needle more than anybody else in the building, that's the greatest gift we can give is what's a small thing. So let me give you an example of a small move. Okay. So here's a small move out of, well, why don't we do this, Carol? You want me to focus on one that's where kids talk more, or one where kids think more, or one where kids achieve more? I'll let you pick. We'll roll the dice.
I know I am going to always go with talk more because my space is the English learners. And I just often see they don't have enough opportunities. And then when they have the opportunities, they might be scared. I mean, I just want them talking more initially.
Okay. So here's the book. If you're watching this on Zoom, and there's the chapter on getting kids to talk more. So let's see. Why don't I share with you? Oh, this one I love. It's so easy. And you're going to see it meets our criteria of what's a small move. All kids, all learners, brief, no prep. And what is my last one? Actionable. Okay. This is called anyone's idea. Anyone's idea is the name of the small move, right? And so we let kids talk and then we call on kids. And often this student you just described, our emergent bilingual student, our English learner who might be really uncertain, maybe they were more of a listener during a conversation with their partner or their group. Let's pretend I call on that student because I want them to talk more, right? I want to give them some linguistic practice, right? Some oral rehearsal. So I call on Carol, my shy, nervous, mostly listening sort of English learner in the class. But before I call on her, I say, okay, you guys, I'm going to call on somebody. But what I'm going to do is you can share your idea or you can share anybody's idea in the group. So you can share what you heard from your partner or you can share your thinking. All that is 2 sentences before I say, okay, Carol, give us your idea. But you see what I've done? I've lowered that, the affective filter is the Stephen Krashen term, but if we want to simplify it, just the stress, right? It doesn't feel like I have to be so knowledgeable. It's almost like I don't have to know it. I'm just reporting it. I'm just sharing it out, right? And imagine if that phrase became automatic in my class. It's not just one time that I say that. It's every time I'm calling on kids. Don't forget, you can share anybody's idea that you want. If that becomes an automated habit, every time I call on kids, Marco, you remember what you can share yours or your partners. Okay. More collaboration in another class. Stephen, you're up. What did your partner say? Right. What we do is it has a ripple effect of kids feeling way more comfortable talking because they just know in that class, it doesn't have to be all me. It can be anybody's idea.
And that really gets to the heart of what we're trying to see happen is when you tell students to turn and talk, we know there's I even know the research, it's a 19-point percentile gain in achievement when according to Marzano and some research out there. Nobody's going to tell you structured conversations are not powerful. Everybody knows that. Everybody knows we want more student talk just for learning. And the thing is, though, that research says it's if they're talking about what we want them to talk about, not just turn and talk about anything. They have to be comfortable. They have to be listening to each other. And when you have a lot of stress that just kids are not, that stress is high, that filter is high, and learning is not happening at the rate that it could be happening if they're super comfortable.
Right. I got one more I want to talk to you about because I didn't get a chance to talk about this at the training. And so we're going to just air it out for the world right now.
Yay.
So another one of the small moves that it technically falls under the getting kids to think more section, but really you're going to see it helps kids achieve more and talk more as well. It's called solo sandwich. So I want you to envision a sandwich, right? We have 2 slices of bread and all the goodies in between, right? the goodies in between in this analogy is collaboration. I think all teachers right now are focused on helping kids collaborate with each other, right? That's not new, right? We know we want kids to maybe do group work together, or maybe they're at a workstation in a primary classroom, or it's a table conversation. So the middle, the sandwich part, is collaboration of some kind, working together, talking together, whatever that looks like. That's already existing in your classroom. So you're not having to change that. It's just whenever they're going to do collaborative work, what we're going to do is put solo thinking or solo processing time before the collaboration and after the collaboration. So the solo sandwich, the bread, is independent processing time. So let me just tell you what this looks like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, you guys, you're getting ready to talk with your group, and I want you to brainstorm looking at this picture of this tree frog. And we've been talking about adaptations a lot. I want you to think about, like, you're going to talk, see if you can come up with 3 different adaptations you see in this picture of this tree frog. But before you do that, I'm going to give everybody just a few seconds to jot one down on your paper. You see, that's independent processing first.
Right.
And then I say, okay, go ahead and talk. See if y'all can come up with 3. You've got it. And then before I move on and I call on anybody, I'm going to say, okay, everybody, go back to that one you jotted down. See if you can add 1 or 2 more based on your partner conversation. Here's the value of that, right? I think sometimes we know collaboration is good, and we're so zoned in on that we're actually missing doing checks for understanding with individual kids. If I just said, talk to your table, come up with 3 adaptations you see, and then I say, who can share out what they came up with, right? I call on my volunteers who are highly engaged in science class. You might have half your class that hitchhiked during that activity.
Right.
They just caught a ride with somebody else, right? And it doesn't mean they're being non-compliant or lazy. They weren't held accountable individually, right?
Right.
So when I say jot your idea down and then go back and revisit your individual idea at the end, doing that is training every kid, number one, to be accountable, but also it's this idea that we are embedding students reflecting on their own learning. And there is a lot of research to support that when teachers create space for students to reflect on their learning, their acquisition of content increases.
Absolutely.
They just learn it better, right?
Absolutely.
So I can imagine this, and this idea of independent processing. This is where I want to revisit small, keep it simple. This is not formal. I'm not saying write a complete answer, then collaborate, write another complete answer. I'm just saying, check in on your own paper real quick. Or how about this, even simpler? When you've got one idea based on this picture of this tree frog, when you got something in your head, just point to the ceiling. It might even just be a signal. It might not even be written, right? And then after the collaboration, at the end, you might say, okay, look, our content objective was to identify animal adaptations. I want you to think right now, if you've got 2 for this tree frog in your head, point to me, right? So it might be as simple as 2 signals that require seconds of instructional time, all the way to, of course, you could have them do some quick jots or some writing to a sentence stem. Those would be fine. So what are your thoughts about that solo sandwich? It's the first time it's come out of my mouth. It's only come out of my brain on paper in the book so far.
I love it. And I love it so much. I'm training here, in a few days, and I want to be really intentional about it, because I think we maybe do some version of these things, but when you don't know why you're doing it, I mean, if it's a habit, I do something like this because I get positive gains from it, right? And so you get this positive feedback and you don't let go of that teacher move. But I haven't thought about it in that way. So I know right now I'm not thinking about the sandwich. I maybe do it at the beginning and I don't do it at the end.
So, and I want to piggyback on that, because you were saying kind of like, I do these things, right? Like here's one of the small moves in the book is smile. Every teacher I know smiles, but we don't smile habitually, right?
Right.
We smile in the morning. We don't smile at 2:00 on Friday afternoon. So the question is, how do I automate it? So let's go back to solo sandwich. Some of the research that's in the book and that we know about habit formation. One way to build a habit is we have a visual cue. So here's the thing about solo sandwich. I've given it to you. What are you picturing in your head right now? A sandwich.
Right.
So if you have the visual, when you're in your classroom, you're like, I listened to that podcast. What was that thing about the sandwich? You see what I'm doing? I've got it in my head. So one way to help build a habit is to have a visual cue. So this mental image of a sandwich is going to help you remember to do that in the moment.
Fantastic.
Another way that we can build a habit is something called habit stacking, right? Mm-hmm. Which is you take something you're already doing, and then what you do is whenever I'm doing that thing, I try to remember to do the next thing that I want to do connected to that thing, right? So we're going to stack the habit. In my real life, a few years ago, I started having to take a regular medication, and I'm terrible about remembering medicines, right? So I had to find a way to remember to do it every single day. Well, you know what I do every day? I put my contact lenses in. I do that every single morning without fail. It's automatic. I don't think about it. I do it. So what I do now is I just put my medicine bottle on top of my contact lens case. So I've got to take my pill out and put it in my mouth before I can put my contacts in. Perfect. Right. But that's a concrete example of habit stacking. So how can we habit stack a solo sandwich in our classroom? What are we already doing? You're already planning that collaborative task. It's already there. Right. I'm not asking you to change your lesson plan, but if you know you're going to do a QSSA and partner A is going to talk, then partner B is going to talk, you're already doing that. Or maybe you're not doing that. Maybe what you're saying is it's the end of the year. Y'all have this collaborative task. You get 3 days to work on it. Right. Because I just need a little bit of a break. Right. But it's already in the plan. Whatever the collaborative task is, it's there. So now it goes back to what you just said of that intention. I'm going to think to myself, every time kids are working together, did they jot on their own, and are they jotting again at the end?
Yeah.
Right? And maybe Carol, that one needs to be broken into an even smaller move. Maybe it's collaborate, and I'm going to stack that independent reflection at the end, and I'm going to get really good at that. And then I'll focus on the independent reflection at the beginning.
Yeah. It's like, how small can you get the move to where it's comfortable for you and you automate it?
Yes.
That was my big takeaway from that day. And like I said, just when you start reading the book, what I really appreciate is that the first chapters are about the why and the how and the research before you get even into those actual moves.
Yeah, I think that there's two, James Clear's work in Atomic Habits is amazing. If you haven't read that book, it'll change your life. I'm about to start reading it for the third time right now.
Wow.
He talks about the 2-minute rule, right? Anything you're trying to do, it has to be done in 2 minutes or less. And then BJ Fogg, he's another thought leader. He wrote Tiny Habits, and he says you've got to make it the smallest one possible. And his iconic example is if you have trouble flossing, just floss one tooth. Right? It sounds like outrageous, but you see how if all I have to do is floss one tooth, it feels like, how can I not do that? It's so easy that I can do that. Right.
Right.
So I think that bringing that lens to our classrooms,
instead
of the lens we normally get, which is here's your 6-hour session and your big giant PD book, and we're going to do one unit at a time every week in PLC, that does not feel accessible. It doesn't feel like I can take action on that.
Yeah.
So maybe, even if it's not a move in this book, right? What you can take from it is, how can I look at those big rocks and break them down into teeny tiny pebbles, right?
Into teeny tiny pebbles. Because if I'm sitting there flossing one tooth, it's doable. And after a while, I'm not thinking about it anymore. But eventually, how am I not flossing other teeth, right?
Yes, yes. And this is where the gains come in the classroom, because if you do this little tiny thing once, and all of a sudden, Carol, my shy emergent bilingual, when I said you can tell anybody's idea, and she says something, see, habits need rewards. And what a reward is that? As a teacher, I'm going, oh my gosh, did you guys hear what Carol said? That's what I'm thinking in my head, right?
Right.
And so you get the immediate reward. And what do you want as a teacher? I want more of that. So I'm gonna be influencing my next action step to vote for the kind of teacher I want to be, because I just got the reward I want.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, this is so wonderful. I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited about it because, well, everybody was excited about it throughout the day. I want to put a big plug if this professional learning comes to your area, or if you get an opportunity to do this online. I can't recommend it enough, because it was such an uplifting day. It was such a empowering day for everyone. And so I'm really excited for you and for the book. And I know people want to know, I want to say again, the name is Small Moves, Big Gains by Nancy Motley.
And I'm going to give all the plugs, and then I want you to, I want to leave everybody with a quick tip that something they can do right when we get off the phone. Okay.
Nice.
Okay. So, first of all, you don't have to hope or wait for this information to come to your campus or your district. You can just give me a call, right? It's available, right?
If people are listening to this real time in the summer of 2022, there is an opportunity in Dallas, Texas on September 30th. You're giving a full day workshop, right? Tell us about that.
So the hashtag is hashtag small moves.
Yeah.
So if you search that hashtag, you're going to see the registration links. We'll have a live conference. Anybody can attend. If you attend, right, if you register for that conference, part of the conference is you're going to get a full day training with me about all these this information, but you're going to leave with the book. So the book is part of the registration.
Yeah.
It's also going to be available for purchase on Amazon starting on June the 30th. So if you're just kind of on your own, you're doing DIY PD like Carol and Ton and oh gosh, Katie Toppel. Yes, thank you. And Katie brought that book out. You can do all kinds of DIY PD with this resource by purchasing the book on Amazon. And then obviously our Seidlitz Education website, which is just seidlitzeducation.com. That would be a place where if you were wanting to bring the training and the books to your campus or your district, there's all the links are there for that.
Highly recommend it. Highly recommend it, especially now that we're doing so much of this online. Like there's nowhere in the listening audience who couldn't get this for their team. And
Right.
What a gift. What a gift to your team. I can guarantee you they will love it. Everyone in the room loved it. And we loved it before we even came to the workshop. The book itself is such a resource. It's a Seidlitz education resource. So you know that it is a beautiful book and readable and accessible in itself. So you've produced such a beautiful product for teachers. It's really a gift. I would say if you have a teacher in your life, get them the book because they will love you for it.
Oh, that's a really good thing to think about. And another piece from our training day, we had one, he was actually your partner and he was a brand new baby first year teacher. And he gave me the best feedback I could imagine. At the end of the day, he came up to me and he said, I needed this.
Oh.
He said, I feel so good and I can do this, right? And he said, I haven't really had that feeling in any PDs all year, even if I like the content, because he said, I don't know what I don't know, but I feel like I know a lot of things and you validated those and I have some ways to move forward. So that was really good. Okay. So
you really gave me chills because that guy sat next to me and he was my AB partner,
yeah.
But he was sitting in a room with curriculum specialists and coaches. And at the beginning of the day, he even said something about feeling kind of inadequate with everybody and what they know there. And you just watched him grow over the day because of the way that you model through the workshop, all of these moves. And, so his voice is super valuable. His fresh eyes for the profession was super valuable for us to hear. And he felt empowered to share. I just loved it. I loved that he was my partner.
Awesome. So here's my tip to wrap it up. And
here's the tip.
It's actually not my tip. So this also comes from BJ Fogg's work, but he doesn't call it this, but we call it this. He crafted a sentence stem, right? So we know all about sentence stems for our emergent bilinguals. I'm going to give you a sentence stem to help you improve your teacher habits right now. So the sentence stem sounds like this. After I blank, I will blank. So I'm going to share with you one from my real life and one from my classroom life. So I am terrible at laundry. I hate laundry. It's the bane of my existence. I'm really good at putting it in the washer. I'm really good at putting it in the dryer. And I'm really good at doing nothing else after that. Right. So my whole family has to shop the clean clothes pile to find their clothes. Right.
I know that.
Right. It's very relatable. Right.
Yes.
Anyway, I want to fix this habit, but it's too big. And so I thought to myself, okay, when the dryer goes off, I'm going to fold one load at a time. That does not work. It's too big. So I followed this sentence frame. After I blank, I will blank. Here it is. After I pull the clothes out of the dryer, I will fold one towel. And I've been folding one towel for about 3 weeks. And to be honest, there ain't nothing else different about my laundry room right now. There's still a pile of clean clothes, right? But I have 9 towels stacked on top of my dryer. And every time I go in, it's not a feeling of I'm not doing it. I'm like 9 towels. And then I'm thinking to myself, I better go put those towels away so I can put more towels on top. It's the baby step, right? I'm cultivating that habit right now. So let's think about in our classroom. Most classrooms where I go, they have some sort of a Promethean board or a smart board, right?
Yes.
What if every time I'm after I touch my board, meaning I'm going to hit play on something, or I'm going to click to another slide. Every time I touch my smart board, what if after I touch my smart board, I'm going to smile? That's what I'm going to do all day long. That's my intention for today. Yeah. If I touch it, I smile. It doesn't matter if it's a real or fake smile either, by the way. You can read that in the book. The research says fake smiles work too. Fake smiles release the same endorphins that real smiles do. So after I touch the smart board, I will smile. So that's it. So everybody fill out your after I blank, I will blank. It can be for your real life. It can be for your teacher life. It can be a combination of both. Start small, and you guys, your kids will be talking more, thinking more, and achieving more. There's just no way around it.
There's no way around it. I hope people wrote down that sentence starter. After I blank, I will blank. That can go through so many different areas of our lives. Thank you so much, Nancy Motley.
Oh, you're welcome. It was awesome. Great hour of the day getting to spend it with you.
I loved it. I loved it. I also want to put a plug for the ML Summit that's coming up. And this year, we're only having a few, just a handful of folks. And we're so honored that you would come back. You are ML Summit royalty. You've been there since the very first year. And so we're really excited for you to come back and maybe talk about a little bit more about this in a presentation type of format for us live.
I am looking forward to it.
Live and interactive with people. So we can't wait for that. Okay. So
did you tell them the date on that? That's July the 9th, right?
It is July the 9th. Okay. And you will be
calendar.
The first. Yes. Mark your calendar, July 9th. We do have that set in stone. And Nancy will be speaking first that day. So we want you to get up early. And we'll put all of that in today's show notes. So Nancy, I just want to thank you again for coming and for everything you're doing in the field. You have a huge impact on my life, and you have a huge impact on the lives of so many people. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you, Carol.
Yes. Talk soon. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Okay, so another big thank you to Nancy Motley for sharing so much from the book. And there's so much more. There's so much more. I really want to put a plug in if you did not get a chance to see her in Houston. Now that this show is out, we're in the middle of the summer, and she just did a workshop in Houston. You can find on Twitter how well received it was. So there's another opportunity in September 30th in the DFW area of Texas. But like she said in the show, you don't have to wait for that. Just contact Nancy. You can bring this to your district. There are many districts that are already signing up to have the entire staff at a school or in a district or a team trained. This is so important. One of my huge takeaways from this was, what are we already doing? What are we already doing that we can stack a habit on top of, or realize that it's a little tweak to what we're doing? Just the awareness of some of these things makes a huge difference. The trajectory changes and the outcome is so much bigger within that class. So I'm very excited. I've been trying these things since I interviewed her in my professional development, and it makes such a big difference. You save time. There are seconds. Some of these things, like she showed us, that are just total response signals and ways to have kids engaged and thinking and reflecting. It's just a lot of times we're making things harder than they need to be. So again, that is my big takeaway, is the clarity of what are some small things that have big payoffs. And I really feel like this small moves, big gains is the kind of thing that we all need right now. I know it is. All right. So you can find how to connect with Nancy. She said her Twitter handle, it's Nancy Motley, TRTW. But if you go to today's show notes, you can connect with her there as well. You can find the show notes in the same place always. It's the short link bit.ly/B a podcast, all in capital letters, and you're looking for episode 109. I will also have some links there for the Text TESOL conference, the links to register and to present are now out. And so I'll have those in the show notes. Please come. That's in November 4th and 5th in Houston, Texas. Our Tex TESOL regional is the state conference this year. Here in Houston, Dr. Stephen Krashen, Dr. Andrea Honigsfeld, the John Seidlitz, all four of us are keynoting that event. So we'd love to have you come to Houston and check out how you can plug into that in today's show notes. I'll also have a pre-conference that you're welcome to come to at the TABE. That's the Texas Association for Bilingual Educators Conference. It's happening in mid-October, October 13th. Around there, I have a full day of rapid literacy strategies for older emergent bilinguals. Let's get literacy off the ground for our older emergent readers. We can absolutely help boost their literacy. So that would be lovely to see you there. Contact me or contact Nancy Motley to hear more about any of this. But I am so thrilled that you joined us for this show today. Thank you so much for doing this DIY PD every time you listen to a podcast, even if it's in little chunks. You're taking your own professional learning into your own hands and you're taking it to the next level. And I really hold you in high regard for that. So thank you. I'm sending you positive vibes. I appreciate you so, so much. Please reach out. Let me know what you thought about the show. Okay, take good care. Bye-bye.